So excited to have you with us for our Juneteenth event. We're going to open this up with a story, and I think this storyteller might be somebody you guys know, right? Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, help me give a very warm welcome to Baba the Storyteller.
All right. Now, before I start, I have to pull us together. So for those of you who do not know me, let me introduce myself, and then we'll jump into this. They call me Baba the Storyteller. I'm not actually a storyteller. I'm what is known as a griot. I'm actually a trained griot out of West Africa. Now, a griot is an oral historian. A griot is someone who is the repository of knowledge and information of his or her people, and the griot passes on that information through singing, through songs, through stories, through dances. That's what a griot is. Now, y'all are looking at me because some of you know what a griot is, and you're looking at me because you're thinking, he does not have an accent from an African language, because griots come out of Africa. The reason why is because I was born here in this country, and I grew up in this country. And when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my great-grandpa, and my great-grandpa lived to be 110 years old. Y'all better clap for that. 110. Now, my great-grandfather's mother and father, remember I was born in this country, my great-grandfather's mother and father were both born into enslavement. They were born into slavery. So when I was growing up and my great-grandfather was teaching me about my heritage, about my culture, about who I am, he used to always talk to me about my ancestors. Y'all know that word? He would talk to me about my ancestors, and he would tell me that my ancestors came here from, do y'all know where? Africa. Yeah. So when I grew up, when I got a little older, I went to Africa. And when I got there, I met these old people who were singing, and they were telling stories, and they were playing music. And I asked these old people, please teach me how to do what you're doing so I can take it back to my country, to my people. And they taught me. So instead of me telling you, we're just going to do it. Y'all got my back? Everybody got my back? Okay, those of you who know, just sit tight. We got to teach everyone else, okay? Repeat after me. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka. Jalia da. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jalia da. Now, in the village, the griots would go village to village. They would sing this song, and it was a song to bring everyone together. So anytime you hear me sing these words, you sing back. Here's what it sounds like. Y'all are going to help me out. Y'all going to help me out. Here's what it should sound like. The griot approaches a village. The griot sings to bring everyone together. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jalia da. And they continue the singing as the people get together. And as the people are coming together and they're singing, they're playing their music. So anytime you hear me sing those words, everybody, y'all all sing back. Y'all got me? Because everyone's voice matters. If you hold your voice back, you're making everyone work harder. But when you add your voice, you help us create a thing of beauty. I'm going to sing a whole bunch of words you guys don't know, so listen carefully. Good eye contact, good eyes. Ambia sinana, ambia sinana, ambia sinana. Jeli muzonin jeleke, ambia sinana. Yes. Bula bula julula, iwala bula para jaluma. After me, yeah, Jalia. Stronger, come on. Alaleka Jalia da. No, I'm gonna bring it. Give me back what I give you. Yeah, Jalia. Yes. Alaleka Jalia da. Ambia sinana, kumbemba jali muzanin jalekelu. Ambia sinana. There was once a hunter who went out hunting birds. He took a big net to a field, and he was hunting for these birds, and he noticed in this tall grass, he saw the grass moving. So he took this large net, he threw it over the grass, and he trapped the birds. Could the birds fly away with the net trapping them inside of it? No. So he gathered up all of the birds. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jalia. He gathered up all the birds and he took them back to his home. He shoved dozens of birds into this huge cage. And these birds, they were squawking and squealing. They were making noise. They were throwing their bodies against the cage. All of them. And then the hunter came over, opened the door of the cage, and he threw some bird seed in. When he threw the bird seed in, all those birds that had been running around frantically, throwing their bodies against the cage, they stopped. And they began eating the bird seed. And they were quiet. And all of them were eating the bird seed, except for one bird. After me. Yeah, Jalia. Yes, alaleka Jalia. Everybody, let me feel it. Ambia sinana. Ambia sinana. Take it over. Ambia sinana. Jelly, so nin jelekelu. Ambia sinana. Bula bula chulula. Iwala wala kwarajanuma. Now, whenever the birds would start making noise, the hunter would come in and he would throw bird seed into the cage, and this would quiet the birds. And they would eat and eat and eat, except for this one bird. This one bird stood at the back of the cage, refusing to eat. Over days and weeks, the birds became accustomed to being fed. So the hunter would come in and throw bird seed in. And after a week, no more squawking, no more throwing themselves against the cage. And after weeks and weeks, those birds began to get fatter and bigger and more plump, except for one bird who got smaller and smaller. Yeah, Jalia, yeah, Jalia, alaleka Jalia, alaleka. That bird, all the other birds looked at that bird who was getting smaller, not eating, and all the birds said, you should eat, you should eat. You're going to die if you don't eat. And that bird would just shake its head until one day it was so skinny you could see its bones through its body. And then it slipped through the bars of the cage and flew up to a branch. All the birds inside started squawking and yelling, don't leave us, come back, help us. And that bird that flew up on that branch looked back and said, you were willing to eat the food of your oppressor. You deserve everything that's coming your way. Freedom has a cost, a little lower. Yeah, Jalia. Give me a whisper. There we go. Yeah, Jalia. If you enjoyed that story, clap for it. At this time, I want to bring Chelsea back up. They'll turn you on.
Oh, wait.
My name is Chelsea. I work here at the Aquarium. I am our Community Relations and Events Manager, so I get to do a lot of really cool events like this and learn from some amazing people like Baba. But I also get to learn from some of our own staff, and so I'd like to call up my friend Callum to come join us for this interview. All right, guys. Callum, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thank you all for being here. My name is Callum Watson. I run our youth programs here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and I am a marine biologist myself. And I grew up working with sea animals, just like sea lions and scuba diving, quite almost every single day of my life. So that was my upbringing. And I have had such a joy working here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, being able to meet people like Chelsea and Baba, and just being able to share my story here with you all on Juneteenth. So I'm super excited to be here, and I can't wait to get into some discussion, maybe even learning from some of you all in the audience as well today. So I'm really excited.
I know those responses they had, it sounds like they know an awful lot.
We've met, some of us have met before.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about Juneteenth, which what I know most about it has come from the two of you and a little bit of the research I've done on my own, but to kind of give us a baseline of where to start, for anyone who hasn't heard of this holiday before, who doesn't know much about it, it has been a federal holiday for the past 3 years, and I believe it was first celebrated in 1865, and Juneteenth comes from June 19th, and we kind of squish it together as one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you grew up celebrating this holiday, right?
From birth, yeah.
Yeah.
I was born in Central Texas. And when I was growing up, Juneteenth wasn't a huge celebration. Juneteenth was something when I was growing up that the churches did, and they were just small, simple celebrations. And I think the largest celebrations we had were not in Galveston. They were in Houston when I was growing up. And the reason why they were based in Houston was because the enslaved people, when they had gained freedom, they pulled their resources together and they purchased land in Houston. And that park, Heritage Park, was where we would celebrate Juneteenth.
So what exactly is Juneteenth celebrating?
I don't know why you do this to me.
Because I love to hear you speak.
I have some issues about how the narrative of Juneteenth has been put out. So I'm just going to put this out. Here's the popular narrative of Juneteenth.
Okay.
The popular narrative of Juneteenth is that the formerly enslaved people were freed and did not know they were free until this general named Granger came through on June 19th, 1865, and had what he called an order, a general order, that he announced, you are all free. And supposedly all the enslaved people were happy and, oh, we're free. General Granger just told us we're free, but that's not the truth of Juneteenth. So
it's never that simple, right?
So I told that part. Can I tell the second part? And I'll
Sure.
tell it really fast. The truth of Juneteenth. And I need this to be solidified. No human being at any point in history ever sees themselves as anything else other than free. No human being. Human beings realize that they are living under oppressed conditions, but no one looks at themselves and says, I am a slave. And the people of Galveston didn't either. In fact, 2 years before, 1863, there was a regiment of five black regiments that came to Brownsville, Texas. In 1863, they came in to disrupt the cotton trade. I'll make it quick. They came in to disrupt the cotton trade in 1863 because Brownsville was a major port. And the Confederacy was funding the war against the North through the cotton trade. 5 black regiments. I'm going to say this a little louder. 5 black regiments entered Texas in the South, and then they went into San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and they made their way up toward Galveston. And we're supposed to believe that the people living in Galveston knew nothing about this war raging around them. So I know they knew. Mm-hmm. I know they knew. And they also fought for their own freedom during that time. Part of the people who came back in those regiments had come from Galveston, had come from Louisiana, and they were coming back to free their mothers. They were coming back to free their elders. They were coming back to free their children. And we never talk about that. I just want to put that out.
No, I think it's important to mention because also the Emancipation Proclamation was signed 2 years before this holiday was ever even celebrated or recognized. So I know the timing gets a little bit tricky. The narrative, like you said, gets very complicated.
I know, you keep doing this to me. The Emancipation Proclamation was prepared before, but Lincoln had a Secretary of State. His name was Seward. And the North was losing the war, and Lincoln said, we got to put this proclamation out, right? Seward said, no, don't do that. And then Lincoln said, but we're losing the war. We have to put this proclamation out. And Seward said, but if you put it out now while we're losing, he said, it's going to look like we're big. He used this poetic language, stretching forth our hands to Ethiopia instead of Ethiopia stretching forth their hands to us. But basically what he was saying was, we put the proclamation out now, it's like we're begging black folks to come help us win the war. And we don't want it to be that way. The optics for these politicians were bad, which is why the Emancipation Proclamation came out when it did.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying that you grew up celebrating because you were from Texas. I know you didn't grow up in Texas. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I grew up right here, Southern California. Okay, yeah, Southern California.
I'll give it to you.
But, so I wanted to say this. A lot of our audience is really young here today, and you heard what he just said, and it might feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way on earth that I'm ever going to be able to know as much as this man here knows. And I wanted you to know that this is my elder here, so, I'm still learning as much as he is. But it took me to get a master's degree to sit down and study Black history so deeply in order to start understanding the depth of what happened. There's so much that I just discovered, and it took me so long, all this time until my lifetime, to start digging deep into what actually happened. And I'm still discovering things right now. So if you're at a point in the audience and you're like, Juneteenth is something that's newer to me. I might not have had as much experience with that. I think that is totally okay. And you have to validate yourself knowing that you, at any moment in time, you can start learning and diving deep into your own culture and your own history if you are Black and things like that. Go into it, dive deep into it. I had the chance to start celebrating it recently. Also, I wanted to segue into this. As I started studying it, I started realizing how deep it was. And some things were a little bit heavy for me to grapple with, to be honest with you. There's certain books that I was reading, I actually had to put those books down because it was very heavy.
Yeah.
I've never had to do that before in my life.
Yeah.
So it is so important coming into the future day and age, right? Where when we are going out to celebrate Juneteenth, we are actually just coming together, letting loose, having a good time. I'm seeing so many celebrations happening this weekend. You might catch me but, right, I'm going to have a good time and celebrate, and I think that is so, so, so important for us to watch each other come together, having a good time, letting our hair down, just enjoying our beautiful Black skin, our beautifulness, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in some pretty tough
I think
things.
we owe it to our ancestors who suffered as much as they suffered to come together and celebrate hard.
Yes.
I think we owe it to our ancestors. I agree with you.
That's
Oh, y'all like that celebration part, huh?
Barbecue after? No.
I think that's important to note, having to put the books down because it was really heavy. Something I've learned from both of you doing this interview, which this is our third year doing it, and I'm so happy to have you guys back with me again, teaching me more, is that celebration is important, but it's also okay to acknowledge the hurt and how heavy it can be too, right? I want to ask you a little bit about the celebration part of it. I know almost any holiday you go to, they have traditions, they have significant maybe dances or flags or anything like that. How did you grow up celebrating Juneteenth?
Well, when I began celebrating Juneteenth as a child, it didn't have a flag in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it did, but I didn't grow up with it as a flag. The way that I was celebrating it was, you have to realize, I was born through formerly enslaved. I'm someone who actually was connected to my roots, to my great-grandfather. So my families worked cotton plantations, they worked sugar plantations. So when I was coming up, it was a more somber celebration. It was more of remembering those who came before us type of celebration. Now, there was the red velvet cake, which y'all all know about. There was the red soda, there was the red watermelon, there was all of that. But I remember, and I'm gonna put his name out, he died decades ago. His name was Pastor Abercrombie. I remember he said, all of these things are symbolic. Red is not just a color, red has meaning. And it wasn't until I started traveling the world that I realized that African people in the diaspora use red as a symbolic of rebirth, of coming back into being. So a lot of these things I grew up doing, but I was young. I mean, I didn't know. The stuff I'm telling y'all now, I did not know at 9 years old, okay? I didn't. I played at 9-year-olds. Like, that's what 9-year-olds are supposed to do, right?
Yeah, and I think you know, as anyone grows older, they always learn a little bit more. But I wanted to take a second to point out some of the photographs that you brought for us. We've got a couple of them flashing up here behind me.
Oh, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. This one is my favorite because in this society, for a lot of reasons, black people are usually stripped of our agency. And what does that mean? That means if you usually watch a movie and you see a black person in the movie, they're usually the sidekick of some white person, and the white person is the lead. In fact, when I was growing up in the late 60s and 70s, I remember we would go to a movie, and if we saw a black man in the movie, everyone would go, oh, because we knew he was going to die. And every movie, if you watch every movie from the 60s, unless it had Sidney Poitier in it, every black man who appeared in a movie, they died. So these images of black people to me are important. And the black people, that one where they were firing their weapons, that shows black agency. And we don't show black men in that light enough. And to me, the definition of black masculinity, that is a part of it. These men as fathers, that's another part of it. These people here weren't just people, these people were spies. These people that you're looking at here, they weren't just subservient people who were there. These people took information to the North. They helped the North win. It wasn't only soldiers, it was men, women, and children. So these images are important to me because black agency is important to me.
I think that's really important to point out, honestly. When you frame it like that too, I think it hits home a lot harder for more people as well.
I'm going to put this out because I think this is important. There's some contemporary research. There's a young man, his name is Bobby Ford, and he published, I think it was either last year, he published a book called The Fables of John Shackle. And, okay, now, I don't know if John Shackle was a real person or not. I have a theory about John Shackle. But John Shackle would go plantation to plantation, town to town, and he would tell these stories, and they're called shackle tales, during the time of enslavement. And the reason they're called shackle tales is because people can become very comfortable not acknowledging that they are enslaved or they wear shackles. But when you pull on the shackles, you're forcing them to deal with reality. Mm-hmm. So John Shackle, I think, was a composite of those black ministers who were allowed on the plantations, but then told stories that were subversive in nature. In fact, a lot of the stories of John Shackle, he was chased from wherever he was telling stories, wherever he was preaching or talking, and was not allowed to come back, so he would just travel. And I have a shackle tale in my head. If we have time, I'll tell it. Okay. If we have time.
I think we might at the end of this. I think that would be a good place for it.
Y'all want to hear a shackle tale? A shackle pulling tale.
There, even better. Callum, what is your take on the holiday as someone who didn't quite grow up with it, but who has learned about it later in life?
Yeah, you know, one of my aunts, she always used to tell me that culture is what we believe it is now. So you all are driving culture as well. So unfortunately, whatever we believe, yes, it'll be handed down, but you guys are driving it. So how many of you guys know the term, what is it? Skibbity, what is it? Help me out, somebody.
We got some hands up there.
Right. Okay, see, I'm hearing, oh my goodness, there's so much going on. There's so much going on here, right? Yeah. Look at, see, they can't stop.
And everyone goes quiet.
I know that's right. No, I'm kidding. But so anyways, it is what you make it, right? So you all are going to be driving the culture into the future. So I'm also leaning on you all to see where it's going to go and keeping my finger on the pulse. So for me, working with youth has been a really big part of my journey, planning events for youth on this day or days nearby it, you know, and just getting them together and allowing youth to just take that day for themselves, enjoy the day. I love doing that. That's one thing. Another thing for me is I have to deep dive into my own culture. It gives me that chance to say, you know what, I'm going to take this day and do my own research and my own deep digging. My family's from the Caribbean. I have a piece from the Caribbean and a piece from here. I've been able to kind of go back and forth and do my research, and it's been really hard for me. It has been such a difficult experience trying to go back, finding documents, finding like even bank statements. It's a lot of heavy work. So yes, there's a lot of celebration, but you have to realize that we're kind of going through this discovery process in real time while dealing with a lot of the systems and things that are in place at the same time and the impacts of those systems. So it's just, I think that it depends on the person, how you kind of take that day. For me, it's been a widespread. It goes from celebration all the way into this really deep, serious, deep dive into my own history and my own culture. And it's been a really interesting process. It's been deep.
I think it's important to point out what you said about culture is what we make it. And I think a lot of the time when we look toward the past, we have an idea of, oh, this is this culture. But we forget that, like you said, we're making it as we're moving forward, and it's always changing and always adapting and always being influenced by the people, the events, whatever's going on in the moment too.
Yeah.
I want to pivot us just for a quick second here. That phrase that you used, batio bati, I want to ask you about that, but I also want to ask you a little bit about your instrument you were playing earlier. Can we do that?
Absolutely. The instrument is a traditional griot's harp, oral historian. In Bamana, they don't call themselves griot. Griot was the French term that was applied to them. In Bamana, they say jelly or jelly. And the harp was, they say the history of the harp is played and comes out of the whole of the harp. And they would play this and recount the history of their people. So it's called a kora, and it's basically a big gourd or pumpkin. Cut open, it had a wet piece of cow skin put on it. It's put in the African sun and dried for like 7 days. And the neck of the instrument is wood, the handles are made of wood. And can everyone see these little leather strips here that I'm pointing at? Okay, each one of these has a string attached to it, and there are 21 strings on the instrument. And this is a traditional griot's instrument. So when I went to Africa, it was one of the first times I'd ever seen one. And I asked them to teach me, and they not only taught me the instrument, I mean, they shared their language, they shared their stories, their culture. And what was the other thing?
The phrase that you used earlier, I think it was batio bati. I'm not sure I'm saying that right.
Yeah, I work with a lot of schools internationally, and this phrase is something that when I was working with young people in Compton, Long Beach, Linwood, Bellflower, it was a phrase we would use that came out of Liberia, and the elders and the young people would use this. So, y'all gonna help me with this real quick? Batio bati. Bati. And when the young people say bati, they go quiet. So when an elder approaches a young person in the Kuru language, they're asking, when I say batio, it means, is your heart open to receiving me? And when they say bati, they have to make eye contact with you and say, my heart is open to you.
So are all of these traditions that you're talking about being a griot, they're from multiple different countries in Africa, right?
The main tradition of griots come out of the Mali Empire of West Africa.
Okay.
Dates back over 900 years. I, as an African American here in this country, combine a lot. So a lot of what I'm doing are pieces taken from the diaspora and our culture here. Because I grew up down south a little bit, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina. So I got family all over there. So I combine a lot because we need to hear something a little different sometimes.
Yeah. So I want to get both of your takes on this next question. So I've heard all of us have used both phrases, but I want to ask you a little bit about Black versus African American, specifically in the States. Is there a better term to use? One or the other is better? Is both okay? Is it up to the individual's preference? Can you speak on that a little bit?
That's a good question. I've seen both in the Black community. I've seen lots of conversations happening. I believe that conversation is one that is ongoing and it's still happening. I can speak to my personal experience. I had the opportunity to go to Ghana when I was young, and I went to the point of no return, and that was such an interesting experience for me. But when I walked in through those doors, all of the African people there, the first thing they all said to my family was, "Welcome home. Welcome home. We see you. Thank you for coming. Are you staying? Where you?" I mean, it was like this. You're part of us. I've never met these people before in my life, but it was still this welcome home, and I felt home in that moment. It was so beautiful to see all of us there. So I feel a connection just from that experience alone, but also through music and through all these other connections that I've had. And I grew up around with African families and things like that. I love my African ancestry, you know? I love that we can trace our music back. Gospel music, so much of gospel music comes from African culture, you know, and our origins. There's call and response. Just miking the audience. If you listen to gospel music, miking the audience is such a big part of gospel music. Why? Because that call and response, you're hearing people in the audience going, hallelujah, right? Yes, thank you, God, as we're singing. That's so critical. That was a recent thing. You know, so putting that all together, it honors our African ancestors in many different ways. So for me personally, I'm totally open to using African American because it points back towards Africa. Other folks are in the complete opposite of me. And that's why I say it's an evolution thing. Right. There's conversations happening. He might have a complete opposite. Baba, go ahead, you can kill me if you want to. Go ahead.
For me, I'm a griot. I'm a historian. So I always, when I make a decision on what I'm going to use, how I'm going to think, directions I'm going to take, I use history as my compass. So if you go back into the 1920s, the term African American started being used in the 1920s. And there was a woman named Queen Mother Moore who worked with a man named Marcus Garvey. Queen Mother Moore was saying we need to begin calling ourselves African Americans for political reasons. Because what she said was it connects us to the diaspora. Right? Because as descendants of Africans, we're acknowledging our African ancestry, right? So that historically is important to me because Queen Mother Moore is an ancestor. And when you don't know the voices of your ancestors, you don't know that they put things in motion, then you're liable to say and do all sorts of things. So to me, when we say African American, it's more of a political designation for me. Black, for me, is a cultural designation because it was an evolution from a whole lot of other terms that were very negative. And black came up at a time in the late 50s, early 60s, where to be black was degradation, where we took upon ourselves to get rid of those negative terms and say black is beautiful. We not only said black is beautiful, right, but we started making music about how black is beautiful. So for me, I interchangeably use those terms because when I'm just chilling and with my people and doing what we do, I don't usually use the political you know, if I'm dancing to James Brown didn't say it loud, I'm African American and I'm proud.
Right.
He said, say it loud, I'm
black and I'm proud.
Okay, y'all did not. Hold on.
We'll wait.
I got too many black folks in here. Say it loud.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Don't get fitted. Don't do that again. Don't do that again. But anyway, that for me, that's what it's a designation like that. And I don't have an opinion about other people and how they use it. To me, that's where we start falling apart, is when we start having opinions that we believe we are right or we are wrong, and you should or should not use it. So to me, I got love for you regardless of what you use it, because it's not the word that we're suffering under, it's a system.
Right.
That's a really good point. I'm just thinking, sorry, as I'm sitting here, I think next time we do this next year, we're going to have to mic the audience because everyone on the live stream should hear that. That was great. Both of you have brought up music, and so I think that segues nicely into the next part. I wanted to talk a little bit about Black or African American influence on culture even today. And I know you have a lot to say about that.
Yes, there's Black music. It spans throughout the whole entire world. It's African American music in particular. You hear almost hip hop in everything, every culture around the world. I spend a lot of time around Pacific Islander communities. The way that they eat our music up at their functions, you would almost think that it came from their culture, right? And I love that they love our culture in those ways. So it has such a huge impact, and it's the unseen things that, you know, that we're still studying. And as I read more and I study more, I'm always learning, and I'm going like, wow, I can't even believe that came from us, or this came from, it's just this ever-changing learning process. And I'm always learning something new, and it gets deeper and deeper. Just the moment you think that you've learned everything, you learn that you don't know enough. It is that deep. But yes, it has really impacted the whole world, especially if you look at TikTok and where TikTok is going now. African American culture in particular is driving that. It has driven TikTok throughout the entire world. Without African American culture, African American music, the communal dances that comes with that, TikTok would not be anywhere near what it is and have the influence that it has today, even to be talked about in the government. It is that deep of a thing. Our culture has driven so much of what is mainstream today and in the past. So yeah, just bringing that perspective of what's going on today, it is deep. It's very, very deep.
I mean, even today, when we're setting up for this, you kept telling me, it's like jazz, we'll make it work, we'll make it happen. So I mean, that's another musical influence, I know.
Oh, yeah.
But I was kind of thinking about what I know about Black culture, which of course is not everything, but even the idea of being cool comes back to Black culture so much, like sneakers or nails or getting your hair done or style, or there's just...
Language.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Language is a big one, especially all of the terms and terminologies. We come up with so many of them, and then people run with them, and then they evolve differently. So we're hearing yas all over the place. What do you mean yas? That was us. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to see how almost everything we do, right, has been taken, has been picked apart. Even the concept of Riz. Now the middle schoolers and they're using the word Riz. Yeah. That was us, right? Yeah. So many of these terminologies that we use now and we love and have made it into mainstream, even video games, that's us.
Yeah.
That's us.
Well, I want to give you plenty of time for your story, but I want to take a moment now. Do you guys have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
Final thoughts.
I know that's a hard one.
Something that comes to mind really fast. When I'm out in the community or I'm visiting schools, I always get asked, can white people celebrate Juneteenth?
You stole my next question.
Oh, that was your next question? What's funny is I always get asked, can white people celebrate Juneteenth? And it's a question that takes me aback a little. Because if you look at what Juneteenth actually represents, if we look at African Americans as citizens who had been enslaved, it is the actual day that marks when this nation begins to think about or attempt to put into practice this concept of freedom, right? Not July 4th. Mm-hmm. But when that question comes, I'm always it's like no one has ever asked, except for Frederick Douglass, when we're celebrating July 4th, do you think Black people should be celebrating July 4th because their ancestors were enslaved during July 4th? It's not a question that comes up. It does in intellectual circles, academic circles, but everyone celebrates July 4th. I think Juneteenth should become one of those days where if you place yourself in the cradle of humanistic thinking and feeling, then you have no choice but to celebrate it. Because it is this nation's day that marks a march toward freedom. Mm-hmm. We are not close, we're not there, but it marks a march toward freedom. Last thought, that was my last thought.
No, I'm gonna have to sit with that for a while, I really like that.
Nice. Yeah, if there's one takeaway that I would leave everybody with, I would just encourage everybody here in this room, do your research. It's never too late to start your own journey and diving deep into your own culture and your own research. It took me a long time, like I said, just getting a master's degree to start to really allocate the time to start reading. But you have to navigate being Black in society as it is, the systems real time, and then the things that are coming about because of the systems. You have to dodge and duck and weave through that, and then set aside the time after going through all of that to go deep into your own culture and to deep dive into your own things. So take that time for yourself and don't be afraid if you feel like I'm lacking or I'm on the I hear Baba over here speaking all these facts. You might be feeling like there is no way on earth I can read that many books in 1 year, right? But that's because you've spent how much time, right? You've dedicated all that time to reading, traveling overseas and doing all those things. It takes time. It takes a village. It takes time to listen to people and listening to stories. That's all real time. I'll also even say, I'm going to put my sister on the spot here.
Is she here?
She's not.
Is she watching?
But we went through a journey with our own hair even, right? My sister just now learning how to do her own hair, and she's 25, 26, right? it took us a long time. I'm a marine biologist. I'm in the water 24/7 back in the day, right? I had an afro. I had to learn. Nobody taught me how to do my hair. I had to learn how to do it myself. I had to go on YouTube. I had to listen to all these people and figure it out. And eventually I settled on these long, luxurious, luscious locks. Thought I would say that. Yes, no, I'm kidding. But I had to settle on that. I had to learn that myself. I had to learn how to retwist each and every one of these strands on my own by myself. I had to do that work now. This is happening right now. So take that time, do your deep digging, and start whenever you're ready to do it, but start it, okay? Do your research. That's all I have to say.
I mean, if we're going to talk about hair, that was one of my introductions into Black culture, was trying to figure out my own curls, which are nothing like a Black woman's curls, but that is exactly who taught me how to make mine look like this. I want to put you on blast for a minute here. You keep talking about your master's. Callum's getting a PhD, everybody. Can we give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
Do we have time for a story?
30 seconds.
Oh, we can do more than that.
Not just 30 seconds. We'll keep it very short.
Okay, because we have another friend coming after.
The reason why I want to keep it short is because you guys are going to be introduced to my brother, who's going to come here, and you're going to love him. But shackle pulling tale, y'all remember that?
Yes.
30-second tale. So John Shackle would travel throughout the South as, I believe, a minister, but he would, when the white people left, he would tell a tale like this, with just the enslaved people there. There was once a horse, a wild horse, who was captured and brought back to a ranch. This wild horse, when it was brought back, everyone who tried to break it, ride its back, the horse would throw him. Every time they put it in an fenced area, the horse would leap over. They had to build the fences higher and higher. The horse would kick and buck and snort. And one night, this horse was in its stable, and it was kicking at the stables, trying to break down the doors. And a little mouse walks in. And when the mouse walks in, the mouse looks up at the horse, and the horse looks down at the mouse, and the horse says, "Don't they know? I will never stop fighting for my freedom. I will continue until my last breath to kick and buck and snort until I am free once again. Do they know I will never stop?" And the little mouse looks up at the horse and says, "They're not concerned about you. It's not you they want." And the horse is a little confused and looks at the mouse and asks the mouse, "What do you mean?" And the mouse says, "It's not you they want. It's your children. Because your children will grow up and they will not know your desire for freedom. They will not know your fight against enslavement and oppression. Your children will grow up here. And when they grow up here, your children, will call this place home." Shackle pulling tale, John Shackle. The Fables of John Shackle. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Callum and Baba, everybody. And if you guys want to join me, we'll step off to the side. But next, if I could have everybody help me welcome my next friend, Yogi Melvin. We'll get him out here. The floor is yours.
Give it up for Chelsea one more time.
Thank you.
Did you all enjoy those stories? Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Well, my students, they call me Yogi Melvin. I've had many nicknames. I've been so lucky. This is my 31st year, I guess, as an educator, right? I started when I was 20. Thank you. I started when I was 22 years old in graduate school. And there was a beautiful woman by the name of Jewel Gray. And she told me one day, she said, "Melvin, I want you to teach this class." And I was like, "I can't teach this class. I haven't graduated yet." She says, "Well, listen, it's a pass-fail class, so I'm going to let you teach it." And it was called Career Choices. Are you all thinking about different careers you want to have out there? Raise your hand if you, I want to be a marine biologist. I love the water. I'm a surfer, so I love the water. What was so amazing about this class, it was 26 students that were first-generation Black students. And Jewel Gray said, who was this amazing woman who happened to be white, she said, "They don't need to see me. They need to see you. And I didn't understand what Jewel Gray meant until I studied slavery. As Baba taught us, during slavery, 99% of our education came from the slave masters or the slave master's wife. About 1%, remember that number, 1% of that education came from the black ministers that were allowed in slavery. Well, now let's jump all the way to what year is it? I said, what year is it? Well, now, guess how many black men are educators in this country? 1.8%. Right? During slavery, it was 1%. And now, so many centuries later, it's only gone up 0.4%. So now I fully understand why Jewel Gray wanted me in front of my students, because sometimes we don't get to see each other. So guess what? It's so good to see you all today. Is it good to see me today? All right. I play this drum every day for my students. I'm a wellness instructor. I teach my students breath work. I teach them how to get in touch with their body, and I teach them different stories. And I always give love to all my elders. There's 2 elders, one in this room and one in Leimert Park right now. The one in Leimert Park, his name is Michael D. McCarthy. Give it up for him right now, please. I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a storyteller like that. And then there's Baba the Storyteller. Thank you so much. Because those 2 gentlemen taught me how to stand in front of a room, not in a classroom, but by watching them. And they showed me that if I have excitement to be here right now, the audience will have excitement. Are you all excited to be here right now? Well, I'm so excited, I need to take a breath and calm down. So I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. And why do I say comfortable? Because when I was young, I would close my eyes and there would be movies I didn't want to see. There would be things from the past that were too much until I got comfortable with those stories. So give it a try. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, almost close your eyes so you can stare at the tip of your nose. Once upon a time, in 1863, 25 days after we were told we were no longer in bondage, because as Baba taught us, we've always been free. There was one little girl and her name was Pam. And there was a little boy, his name was Samuel. And their parents were slave masters. And every day they would sneak away and they would go play with Pamoja and Sankofa. Their parents were slaves, or their parents were in bondage. And they had a game that they would play that Samuel came up with. Now Samuel was amazing, but he had a little speech impediment like I did when I was younger, and he couldn't say the letter Z. What letter could Samuel not say? Z. So they would play a game with Sankofa and Pamoja, and it was called freeze tag. What was the game called? Freeze tag. But Samuel, he can't pronounce Z. So what did the game really sound like? It sounded like what? So every day, they would play a game called free tag. And they would run around and they would touch each other and say, "You're free." So Pamoja and Sankofa ran home one day and they told their parents, "We play a game called free tag." And they said, "Shh, don't say that word." "Well, no, Mom, it's okay. Samuel and Pam told us that we can say that." And you know, Sam, we got to listen to him. because he has the best games ever. So they would look at each other and they would say, my hand looks like yours. My legs look like yours. My eyes even look like yours. So they sat down one day and they said, it feels good to be free. But my parents, they don't like us to say that word. And I'm so thankful for being free. And I'm thankful for everything that's connected to me. Because when I look at myself, I know that I can be all that I can be. So they had a song that they would sing called the Thank You Song. And it was to thank themselves for every part of their body that worked, that allowed them to run and play free tag. They talked about all the body parts that allowed them to stand up every day. So I'm going to sing this song to you of what I'm thankful for. Where are my eyes? Where are my eyes? Thank you, my eyes. Thank you, my eyes. You better not quiet her down. I need that voice. Where are my ears? Where are my ears? Thank you, my ears. Thank you, my ears. Now, I used to love the smell of my grandmother's cake in the morning time. That's when I would run outside and play free tag with my daughter. And when I would walk in and grandma would give me the best red velvet cake in the world, and I would say, where is my nose? Where is my nose? Thank you, my nose. Thank you, my nose. Are you all getting the pattern? We started from our eyes, we went to our ears, we went to our nose. What body part is next? Our what? Our mouth? What do you mean? Our mouth is next? This mouth that lets us celebrate how free we are and how we can sit next to each other no matter what we look like and share this moment? Is that what you're telling me? Yeah! Well, I need you to sing this one with me, okay? It is Where Is My Mouth? You all ready? Here we go. Here we go. Where is my mouth? Where is my mouth? Thank you, my mouth. Thank you, my mouth. Now, what body part is hidden right here in my chest? My heart. My heart. And guess what? My heart carries so much love for myself, and I practice self-care so that I can share love with you. So we're going to sing this one, and I want you to close your eyes when you sing it, and I want you to think about who you love the most, hopefully yourself. And we're going to sing Where Is My Heart? Are you all ready? Here we go. Where is my heart? My heart. Thank you, my heart. Now let's go to our legs that allow us to stand, jump, and run. Ready? And I'm just gonna play this time, and I want you all to sing, Where Are My Legs? Are you ready? Here we go. 1, love to skip. Pamoja and Sankofa finished the day of play with Pam and Samuel. They realized that they had always been free. They just needed somebody to put a finger on their shoulder and say, remember, you're free. Everyone, close your eyes for a moment. We're going to take a breath together. I want everyone to put one hand on their stomach and one hand on your heart. And I want you to take an inhale through your nose and an exhale through your mouth. We're going to do 3 of those. Here we go. Ready? Let's begin. And remember, freedom is not a noun, it's a verb. And we have to play with freedom. We have to practice freedom. We have to move in freedom. We have to skip in freedom. Like Baba taught us, I don't want to be that bird that can't get through the cage, so we have to eat the correct way so we can move through freedom. Everybody take one more deep inhale in. One more deep exhale out, and let's all practice freedom. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And just before we sign off here, I want to give a quick shout out to Vibrant Minds Charter School. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Give yourself a round of applause. And then if I could have everybody help me one more time, give a round of applause to Callum, to Yogi Melvin, to Baba the Storyteller, and thank them for sharing with us today. Thank you again, everybody.